Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to another episode of Digital of Business and Business of Digital. Today, we are going to learn about effective reporting with clients. It is one of the most pressing topics which a lot of people have requested us. We today have Barb with us. Hi, Barb. How are you?
Hi, CEO. I'm good. Thanks. How are you doing?
I am great.
Good.
So, Barb is a SEO consultant and owner of Compass Digital Strategies. Driven by data and analytics, she has worked hard to get business changing results for her clients, such as 256% more website traffic and 22% more leads. One interesting fact about Bar is she was a fashion photographer and then turned into a SEO consultant. I'll hand it over to Barb to tell us more about it.
Thanks, CEO. Yeah, so I'm going to start with the short version. A few years ago, I got into fitness photography and turned professional for it and was looking for ways to grow my website traffic and get more clients that way. And I've been in digital marketing for a lot of years. I'm not going to say the number, but a lot of years. And when I went out looking specifically for my photography website, it was even for me very confusing to figure out like where to start or what to do or just anything. It was very confusing. So I had gone to some other networking groups with other photographers and they were having the same problem. And then they were like, oh, can you help me? I'm like, sure, okay, no problem. Well, then started a little bit with that with other photographers. And then other industries started reaching out to me as I was sort of building this side business while I was working at corporate or in a corporate job in digital marketing. And so that started snowballing into some more clients. And then one day I thought, yeah, I think I want to work anywhere, anytime, and just help other small businesses because it was really fun with the people that I was working with. So it took a little while, and then then Compass Digital Strategies was born.
Great. It's a very inspiring journey because you found value in what you were trying to do and you got expertise into it, and which I feel a lot of marketers today are self made in a way because the kind of digital marketing that we all do right now is not taught in colleges, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of
Right.
self learning which is required in this thing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say that you do few courses and you become a digital marketer. I
Yeah.
say you do few courses and you know what is digital marketing. You cannot become a digital, you have to practice it. So
Yeah.
it's a profession like doctors, lawyers is what I feel. Both of them are said that doctors are practicing their profession, lawyers are also practicing because things change a lot. And I think sooner or later somebody will come up and say the same thing for digital also, that we are practicing digital marketers, something of that sort.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny you mentioned that because I actually didn't go to school for this. I went to school originally, actually way after high school, and I was going to go into programming. And then I realized I didn't like programming because, if you get a dot wrong or a comma wrong, you're just screwed. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that's going to work. So then ended up going back again later for my bachelor's in marketing, even though I had been in marketing just to get the paper. And so when I went through all of those classes, I'm like, I'm not doing any of this. This is not helping me. But I got the paper, I finished. So
Great. So number one thing that we start is so about reporting. Uh,
mhm.
what was your first report or what was your first experience about reporting to a client, if you can recall it?
No, I just cannot recall it. I do know that it has evolved from the very beginning, though. I'm pretty sure it was a Word document or something that I put together. I don't think I've ever used like reports from the actual tools because there's so many different things you have to aggregate for information, especially like in SEO. So you have to go
Yes.
from Google Analytics, you have to go from Google Search Console, and maybe sometimes even their own point of sale system or their own
True.
customer relationship management system. So, yeah, but it's evolved and it's still evolving. I keep finding new ways I want to present the information to them.
True. And so, whenever it comes to reporting to clients, and a lot of people talk about which are the key matrices that somebody needs to keep into it. And we will be focusing more on the SEO part, as a lot of listeners are also agencies in SEO. And this is one of the most uh, uh, I think topic of digital marketing where a lot of problems come because it gives result at a longer time than other things,
Yeah.
and it is definitely needed. So how do you explain them, or what are the first things while in reporting, that these are the things which will be included in reports, and these are the things that I think are just vanity matrices? How do you define those things?
It's going to vary by client, but essentially, I guess as a general rule of thumb, the first one is getting visits to the website, in terms of organic search traffic and referrals, because that sort of comes through organic as well. So we set that as the main number, but that number is going to sort of be based on how many leads or sales they want to get. So we'll back it out and say, okay, well, they want to get 10 leads per month. How much do they close on? So let's say they close 20%. I'm not going to know the numbers, but let's say they close 20%. And then we think, okay, if they close at 20%, how many leads do I need to get? And then if they have the previous analytics, you can see how many people come to their website versus fill out a form. And then you back it out that way so that you can get that traffic number that you want to hit. So there's a way to identify that number. So it's that main number that we look for. And then there's supporting numbers. So it's things like time on site, bounce rate, all of those little things that make an effect once they get there. It's not just about getting the traffic there, but it's also making sure they're doing what you want them to do.
Great. So this is also one of the questions which a lot of people have always, is people don't share their actual numbers, and so sometimes they don't share their Google Analytics, and they are like, give us a plan and then we will, when we start we will share you the data, or they are just sharing screenshots, and sometimes you don't get a lot of information from those screenshots because they have sent something else only. How do you deal with those situations, or has those kind of situations arisen with you?
Not with my clients. So, well, I guess let me take that back. Once they become a client, then I get access to those numbers.
Yes.
But if they're not a client and I'm just trying to get a sense of how much traffic do they get, there's tools out there that I use like Ahrefs and SEMrush and that kind of
Yes.
thing. But I don't say that I can do a certain number or help them with a certain thing until we've all agreed on what their goal is, and then making sure that we can track that. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, I can get you to the first page of Google, because that's not right.
Yeah.
Or I can get you 5,000 visits. It's about the goal and then making sure that we can agree. But most of the time, I mean, I can't work with somebody if they're not going to provide those numbers, because I need to make sure that I'm tracking, and because they hired me, that's what we need to make sure is happening. So otherwise, why pay for it?
Great. So when we see or say things in that way, where you said, okay, you need numbers, and then you see how many conversion is there, which a lot of people say is called reverse calculation or reverse engineering,
Mhm.
where they want to go or what they want to lead. And so does that happen that people start asking for output from the first month itself? Is it something which is common, or you have not faced that?
So, well, I set the expectation first.
Yeah.
So they may say, hey, I want to rank for something and I want to rank that fast. I'm like, yeah, hold your horses. That's not going to happen. But it could happen. But I always say, okay, let's give it at least 6 months minimum. Because if you don't hit the goal maybe in 6 months, at least you know that it's going up or that it's heading in that direction. So
Yes.
there's a clear expectation before anything happens. And thankfully, the people that I've been attracted to, or that are attracted to me, they already have some idea of SEO, in terms of what it can do and that it does take a long time. They're usually the people who know about it, but they don't want to do it themselves, or they don't have time to do it themselves.
Yeah. So I think those are the best clients in a way. I always feel there are two kind of best clients. One is somebody who knows things inside out and only does not have time to do it. So you don't have to explain him each and everything. And the other
Mm-hmm.
person is who does not understand anything and he just wants to get it done because he wants to get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody told him to do it and then he is doing it. And rest of them, everybody in the middle, if you're working as an agency with them, you are going to have a hard time. That is for sure, because they will read something up on Google or they will see something there and then they will come back to you. Why aren't we doing this thing?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I've had a client like that. I had to actually let go a long time ago when I first started. I wasn't even in the business right now like I am. It was like
Yeah.
still a side business. And I was, how you pick up all the clients that you can or whatever you can. And it was a horror story. Like they were like, tell me everything. And that's fine. Like I like to teach my clients. Like I want them to
Yes.
know, I want them to participate. But this person was beyond that. It was like they wanted to do it themselves almost. And I had to keep repeating myself because they weren't in it day to day and they didn't know. And it was so granular and everything. It really took away from the time being able to spend on their account, or it just didn't make it fun at all. So
That happens a lot with people in social media who are
mm,
running social media agencies or are social media freelancers, because
okay,
they have to deal with client day to day. And
yeah,
then there are small changes in graphics, there are small changes in content, and sometimes they feel this is not going to impact your business so much. If you're spending so much time in social media, it is not going to impact you, because there are different kind of businesses. And
mm,
that is what I also try to tell people a lot, that sometimes if you are not at a scale, don't push a lot in social media, or maybe don't push a lot in the agencies in that way, because your valuable time is getting eaten up just to handle that agency, which they can themselves do. That is
mm-hmm,
why you have hired them. You don't have to manage them. Get a manager if you want to do that, those kind
yep,
of things.
yep,
So one thing which I have seen while working with lot of clients is how should reporting happen. So should it happen weekly, should it happen monthly, should it happen bi-monthly? What is the best way to make them feel that work is happening? Because that is the number one problem with while they are working with agencies or consultants or freelancer in that way, that if there is a belief system, it is okay, but then once in a while they need that, yes, you are working.
mm-hmm,
What should that document be on? How frequently should you ping them and say, yes, I am working?
yeah. That is a great question. So, what I like to do is I have a weekly report with them. So, we set up an agreed
Okay.
amount of time and day. And in between, I do kind of talk to them a little bit, but I think at least the minimum there's the week, but there's always seems like something's happening. So I just reach out to them through email or whatnot. So for me, I like to do it at least one other time in between, even if
Okay.
it's just like a note to say, hey, I saw this competitor do this, or hey, this might be a cool thing to do on the website. Um, or just an update, because SEO is such a black hole for a lot of people. So they
Yes.
don't know what's going on. And they're like, are you really working over there, or what is happening? So we do the weekly report, and that's exactly where we talk about, okay, what has happened last week? What is happening currently? What's still working on? And then what's upcoming? So it's very clear and very transparent. And I think the
True.
communication is that big piece of it. Like when I was working in corporate, and I had to hire out the companies at that point, there was a lot of people that would spit out a report, and then I'd look at it and I'm like, okay, this just came from a tool. This doesn't tell me anything. Is this good or bad? What are you doing to correct this? Like it was always just monitor. Like they were monitoring things. Like how much can you monitor something really? Like do something. So yeah, that's part of the reason too with the clients. Like I take it to probably an extreme, just because of that. Like I hated when they did that. So I like once a week, to answer your question.
Great. One practice which we did was once a week call, as you said, every Thursday. When I was working with foreign clients, I used to set up a day in a week, and then
Hmm.
every week we meet once. That is the thing.
Yeah.
If you want any other time you want to call, we don't take a call,
Oh.
because yeah. So we tried to implement those things, and I think it was better for both of us,
Okay.
because for them also, they were wasting a lot of time in talking to us every now and then, and they were not concentrating on what their core jobs were. So the other team members, not the founders, we used to talk a lot, but then for the team members, they were wasting a lot of time in correcting us or doing the things which we already knew how to do. So they
Mm,
those kind of things. But that is again for social media. For SEO, it is altogether a different game, because it's a slow process in the first place. People need to
mm,
understand that, and a lot of education is required, which I think you correctly said, that you like educating your client. And
mhm,
SEO is something where a lot of people need a lot of education.
mhm.
uh, so when it comes to reporting, so you said you send once in a while mails about those things. So do you also send them once in a while things like if you have got a backlink from a very good DA, a site with a very good DA or those kind of things, whenever we get more backlinks or we our blog is shared by somebody influential or those kind of things, are there happy moments also which you try to share with them?
Yes. So most mornings I will take a look at their Google Analytics just because I'm so excited to see what they did.
Yeah.
Like, did they get sales? Did they get goals? And then most of my clients, I have their texts. It's a very close partnership with a lot of my clients. So
Okay.
if I see some good number, I'll be like texting them, "Hey, you got this many leads. That's the best we've ever done." So, but like on the weekly calls, in terms of sharing some of that stuff, most of the time it is on the weekly call unless there's something extra big. So we go through like the high level numbers, and it even has like green, yellow, red. Are we on track? So we're kind of
Okay.
below projection right now, or where we should be going for the year. And then we go through specific areas. So like local SEO, we talk about, okay, how much is specifically coming from that area? And then we talk about the ranking. So we pull from Google Search Console where Google sees them and what keywords they're being searched on. So they can see which keywords they are ranking on for the first page.
True.
And then beyond that, if we're doing link building methods, because that doesn't start right away, what
Yes.
I'll end up doing is, so I end up I do a manual piece so that they have a link to the backlink so that they can click it and go see it. And then I don't give them the ones that are spammy, but I do tell them that that's the case. So like when we start reporting on backlinks, I say, hey, I'm only going to bring to you the ones that are valid and worth mentioning, because the spammy ones, there's a ton of them, and I'm not going to waste their time with that. So
True. And in SEO, a lot of time it happens is there are a lot of black hat things also. So,
mm,
and sometimes clients come up with those things that we want to do this or we want to experiment this. How do you explain them that this is not something which is good in long term, and it will always hamper you, and another update from Google is going to crack you down? How do you
mhm.
explain those things?
I tell them no. I'm just kidding. I don't just say no. I do explain it. So for example, I did have a client who hired out for backlinking, and it was one of those batch things kind of thing where they got a whole bunch of them, DR or whatever. And she didn't know it at the time though. So I can't fault her. It wasn't, they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know the
Yes.
black cat stuff. So they ended up getting stuck with these backlinks, and then she started losing them after time because they weren't any good. And then I showed her the numbers too, like, hey, these are the domain ratings and what they mean. And this is why you don't want to do that. So she knows that now. And so if somebody says something to me, what I'll explain is for for the backlink piece of it, I have that whole piece saying, hey, it's not even worth it because they're going to fall off in time.
Yes.
But if you do other things, you have to remember it could result in a penalty from Google. And you don't want that because they're really hard to recover from. So um, just explaining why they shouldn't do it and what is the effect of it when they do it.
Very true. Uh, it happens a lot of time with people in SEO, and thanks a lot for answer. Sometimes we
Yeah.
will also try to answer them in this way.
Yeah.
Another question, which is, which are really good tools which or you use regularly um, to create the website report if they want to do it directly. So for the client, or one is method to download the report. As you said, there are a lot of tools which will give reports to you. Which are those if they are good enough? And should that be done or not? There are two questions.
Okay. Can you repeat the last part of it?
Yeah. So should we download reports from tools? So suppose HREF
Oh,
also gives
okay.
us a report. Should we download that report and send it to our customer?
Mhm.
Is it to be done? That is number one. If yes or no. If no, then we forget that question. If yes, then which are good tools to do that?
Okay. I'm going to give options because it will
Okay.
vary based off of. I'm trying really hard not to say it depends, but
That
okay.
happens a
So
lot. That happens
yes,
a
I
lot
know.
in the podcast because the size of the customer and the things that we are going to talk about, it is a very
Mhm.
general thing that we are currently discussing. But
Okay.
whenever some kind of client comes, so if somebody is from fashion industry, his things that need to be done are very different than somebody from the SaaS industry, because the
Mm,
ticket size, lifetime value of a customer, and all those things are going to come into picture whenever we see that are they going to afford a pro plan of HREPs or not, in that way.
mhm. Yeah,
You can
exactly.
continue with your question answer.
Yeah. So if someone wants to download it from a tool, I don't think it's necessarily that terrible, because there are some tools that do a really good job. So for example, if you're doing a site audit from SEMrush, they have a really great prioritization system that's very helpful, and it even tells you like how to fix whatever is the problem. I think where it needs another layer from a consultant or somebody working on the site is that they take that report, they can spit it out, but then when they present it to the client, that they just go through it and talk about it, verbally, and say, okay, here's what this really means, and go through that. But then, and that's fine if you're just using one tool. I think that's when it can be appropriate, as long as you're still explaining what is happening and going through like, okay, this says it's bad, but why is it bad? Making sure that they understand that. Um, but for me, like when I have to pull mine, I use Google Data Studio for the most part. So it pulls in the back end, the Google Analytics, the Google Search Console. And those are probably the two biggest ones, because then the other stuff I do is manual, but you can, with Google Data Studio, you can create a page and put anything you want on it. And I used to put my agendas in there as well. So there was a blank sheet at the very beginning, and it said, okay, here's what we did last week. Here's what we did this week. But I've kind of since changed that. So I use a tool called ClickUp now, and it's very helpful to use for like all of the task pieces for myself, for all of my clients, all that kind of stuff. So to streamline some of that, what I ended up doing was creating a doc inside of there, because I'm already keeping track of what I'm working on. So I just keep it in there, and then I can just show the client that, and then just switch over to Google Data Studio. So because when I'm presenting this stuff to them, they don't need to do anything in the screen. I'm actually presenting it to them. So I can use the two different systems.
Very rightly said. Can we shed some light on Google Data Studio and its usefulness for people? Because I think it is one of the most underutilized tool which has come from Google. I don't know
Mhm.
why it is not pushing it a lot, and there are not a lot of templates in it. In a way, it can become Canva for analytics, is what sometimes I feel. It is free. A lot of people can use it. You can do a lot of things in it. Supermetrics or
Mhm.
kind of company has made a lot of things from it. But
Mhm.
if you can share something, how is it useful and what are the things it helps you do, it will be better.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot more templates out there from people who have created it themselves. I know I've actually purchased a couple because they were so good, because it's actually, you don't have to, well, it's already built for you that way. So it's kind of nice. But what it does is you can put charts and graphs in there and automatically click something over here to say where the data is coming from. And then you can do filters too. So let's say you have Google Analytics in there, you can use a Google Analytics segment inside of Google Data Studio. So it's pulling it in there. And then you can match with Google Search Console, and pull together some of the information that by itself, Google Search Console can't give you. So that is page with click-through rate and with the ranking. So you can combine the data that's not necessarily there over here in Google Data Studio. And I've also created, I got it from, I forget who it was, Blueprint Training, I think it was. They have a sheet that you can download, and it's an Excel sheet, excuse me, Google sheet, a Google, what is it? Yeah, Google sheet. And I put information from Ahrefs, where people are sitting for their rankings. And it tracks from the moment that I start the account, and then last month and this month, into Google Data Studio. And so it shows like a bar. So it says, okay, this is how many words you have in the 1 to 3 range. This is how many words you have in the 6 to 10 range. So it's kind of nice. I can pull like all of those sources together. I know that I still have a ton to learn from it. Like I'm still underutilizing it, and I use it a lot. So, but those are some of the things that we use for it.
Great. Barb, I think we will have to do a session or webinar for the way you are using Google Data Studio. I found it very interesting, where
Okay.
you said that you are connecting a data sheet, Google Sheet, and
Hmm.
we put data, and it is represented in a way that over a course of 3 months, how the data has changed.
Yeah.
One thing which I see as a problem in the whole SEO industry sometimes is what I feel is we underreport a lot of things in a way, that there are a
Okay.
lot of things which are done by people. So there's on-page SEO, there's off-page SEO, but then the representation of the kind of labor which goes into it is not
Hmm.
shown when you just see a number in maybe Google Analytics, that you got just 14 organic page views, but the kind of effort which goes behind getting 14 daily page views is something which is very different. And
Hmm.
there I think comes the part of representation of your data and reporting in a way which you said Google Data Studio is also. Do you give access to your Data Studio charts and everything which you have created in Data Studio, the whole dashboard? Do you give that access to the company owners also, the your clients?
I do. I give them a link that they can download anytime or go to anytime so they can change the date range because we usually
Yeah.
do like the last 7 days. I don't think they ever use it, but it is available to them because that's why we do the weekly report. You know, they're very busy. So I try and make it real simple for them. But then I also download the report every week and put it in a directory for them on Google Drive. So if they ever wanted to go back and
Okay.
see anything, they have that data easily available. So.
Great. Another interesting insight. Back-to-back reporting or monthly reporting, and then putting it in a folder where
Mhm,
maybe they want to see some backdated things. It can be there.
mhm.
So it's a great way of consolidating all the reports that you have sent to them in date-wise range or maybe month-wise, is what I think you suggested, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I do the monthly reporting too. I don't think I talked about that, but we do the
Yeah.
weekly. And then if
Weekly
the
one.
week falls after the
Yeah.
month, then we talk about the month in review instead of the week. So,
Okay, great. Uh, so when it comes to client reporting, one thing which is there, which I personally have faced issue is uh, explaining the client true meaning of what a impression is, what a reach is. And suppose there are a lot of jargons which are there in the SEO industry also. So, does it get difficult, or how should we explain it to them that this is the one that you have to concentrate on, and this is a vanity metric? Don't see it. But then they again come back and then say, okay, now how is this increasing, and those kind of questions. Uh, what is the way of handling those things?
well, I don't show them what they don't need to know. So,
Okay.
for example, we talk about it. It's not like I'm hiding it, but I don't
Yeah.
make it in front of them because it's not um, as watched because like for example bounce rate by itself is not a good number to watch because there's so many pieces that go into it. So if
Yes.
they have a 50% bounce rate overall in their Google Analytics, it could be because of something happened with some referrals and it's a bad referral, or there is a particular blog post that's doing really well and then they're just coming there reading it and getting it off going off, or maybe it's they come to the website, they get the information they need, then bam, they're
Mm.
gone. Like, so there's a lot of pieces that go into it. So I don't show them those kind of numbers, but I let them know those are the numbers that we take a look at. So
Yeah.
if I see something of concern there, I'll say, oh, this particular channel or this particular thing has too high of a bounce rate. We're going to take a look at that. So I try and keep what is in front of them, what is the priority, and what is the focus.
Great. When it comes to pages, individual pages, so do the clients get into how individual pages are also working, or they blindly believe in the kind of reporting which is there, where we show just these are the top 5 pages and those kind of things? So should we suggest them in a way that these are bottom 5 pages? We can scrap those pages, and because they are not bringing any output, rather than let us focus on just the top 5 pages which are working, and then maybe do backlinking for those pages. Do you give those kind of suggestions?
It varies by client. So one of my clients has a ton of content. So we'll go through on a regular basis, usually every 3 to 4 months, and look at the content. So we pull all the information for every page through Screaming Frog, and it provides Google Analytics, Google Search Console for each page. And then we
Okay.
can go through and say, okay, this page had this many visits, it's ranking this position. but it didn't create any leads. So let's relook at that, see if we want to keep it. So we take a look at it from that perspective. Some of the other ones, what was the other example I was thinking of? Some of the other ones, if they have a particular page they're promoting, then I put that page in Google Data Studio alone, just by itself. So
Okay.
it'll only pull in numbers for that page because we are very focused on that page.
Yeah. And Google Data Studio gives you a lot of liberty of doing those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, because I can see bounce rate for that page. I can see
Yes.
visits to that page. I can see what Google search or Google is the keywords that are being used to get people to that page. But yeah, then the focus is just for that piece.
Okay. And what should be a process where we define things for clients in the initial days, that these are the kind of things which will happen, because expectations and reality are something which are very different when it comes to SEO, because it takes time, that is for sure, and results are also not guaranteed. So it's a game of probability at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
In social media, it is a quick fix. You go, and then if things are working, things are working. Things are not working, you just pull it out. But in SEO, we have to be dedicated enough. We have to work on it for at least 3 to 6 months. It is a minimum period. So how do you define for clients that these are the things that we have to do, and if this does not work this way, we part ways? So how do you make that conversation?
So there is a roadmap that I provide, and it's a 6-month roadmap before we start working, and it talks about what we're going to do each month. And it's not that that will happen. It will vary based off of like what happens as we start working together. Maybe one thing gets done faster, like the site audit or the implementations to website changes. Then we can move on to the next piece more sooner than we would have later. um, Thankfully, I haven't had to part ways because of that. So please, let's not do that. I don't want to run into that problem. But thankfully, all of my clients are doing well. It's not to say that they don't have ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's very difficult on those weeks when we have like, not quite as many leads, or we're not hitting the goals, or there was an algorithm change and you're just holding your breath like, oh, come back. Or if there was a design change, there's all those things that happen from week to week. But
Yes, yes.
for the most part, thankfully, because we have those conversations, they know that there are the ups and downs. And some of the reports that I do, I actually change it from like the Google Search Console piece. It doesn't just show the last 7 days, it actually shows the last 30 days, mostly
Mhm.
because it's so up and down. You can get a better picture with 30 days. And I'm very clear to always say, because I don't think they remember a lot because they have their own business to work on. I say, this is, over the last 30 days. If you have a concern about a certain one, let me know. Or if I see a concern, I say, okay, this one's a little bit of a concern, but I did look at it over the past year. It just happens to be because of this or that. So I make sure that they can still ask me anytime too if they have a concern that I haven't brought up myself.
Understood. It's a very, I think, systematic approach which is required to be in SEO. And client reporting in SEO is a much more difficult part rather than doing SEO, is what I have seen through my journey.
Yeah.
Because it's again, we at the end of the day are explaining why we are doing this, and then there's a lot of things which go to and from. So as we are moving towards the end of our podcast now, usually I ask two questions to all the guests which come.
Okay.
One is, what is your source of learning? So because the industry keeps on changing, because there are new things coming up every day, we learn a lot from clients also. But as industries are different, in a way, you work for maybe a client which is into real estate, and then we move on to working with the client as, suppose you are in photography. How do you differentiate or understand those business models? And so how is the whole process?
So for myself, I'm really big into podcasts. There's a couple of them. I'm like a podcast junkie. There's a couple of them I like. It's Marketing Over Coffee is one of
Yes.
them. And then Agency Highway is another one that I like.
Yeah.
And there's a couple too that I listen to that aren't specific to my industry, because I think it helps just give some like perspective and some different ideas. Of course, I listen to or have the Twitter. do the email newsletters, that kind of thing. A lot of I like to read books, so I get some information from that in terms of like processes and productivity, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then for the clients, because I also still need to keep up to date with what their industry is happening. Actually, one of my clients has a magazine, so I ended up subscribing to the magazine. But then I also have LinkedIn to go into some
Yeah.
of the industries. And again, newsletters, emails. And then their industries sometimes get reports as well, and they'll send them over to me. So I get some information that way.
Great. So, anybody who is listening, and if you want to be in SEO or if you want to be in digital marketing, reading and learning are something which you have to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe do it from podcasts, do it from YouTube videos, by taking some lectures, sessions, webinars, and anything which is there. But it's a continuous effort which goes into it.
Yeah.
While it is a continuous effort, is there a fatigue which comes into place that you now and then you have to learn new things, you have to do new things, because something which worked for one client is not sure which works for another one or not. uh, Strategies change and business models change. What is the motivation behind doing what you are doing right now?
Besides paying my bills. Just kidding. I like what I do, which is why I got into it. It's
Yeah.
a lot more fun for me because of the variety of the clients, of how things are done, that kind of thing. So I think that's what makes it easy. It's not like it has to be motivating. And then I get to help, like now they're my friends, my partners, the people that I work with, they get to, get some relief. They don't have to do SEO themselves. So they get to go out and do their life goals. So that's a good motivation for it.
Yeah, I think the impact that your work creates is one of the best motivations which people uh, can get. So if
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows what kind of impact their work is going to create, be it just being a driver also, if you are adding value to somebody's life, then that is a good motivation to have to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Barb, if somebody wants to follow you, somebody wants to ask you questions, or somebody wants to just know about what kind of work you do, where should somebody contact you?
Probably either the website, compassdigitalstrategies.com, or you can find me at Barb Davids on LinkedIn or Instagram, Compass Digital Strategies.
Great. Thanks a lot for doing this, Barb. I had a great time.
Yeah, thanks for
Hope
having me.
Thanks a lot. Hope our listeners also have a great time. Thank you for doing this. Thanks a lot.